How's it going, NPC Nation? Welcome back to a brand new video. I know it's been a while. I apologize. I'm gonna upload more here soon. But we're back to what if the Mongols invaded Japan successfully? So there's two instances. 1274 and 1281 is when we know the Mongols attempted to invade Japan, were wiped out by a tsunami, and the tsunami, after that, the Japanese were like, this is a sign from God, basically, and then they just never attempted again. What if in 1274, first time they tried, they were successful, and they actually succeeded, and made it all the way to Japan? Well, first, I think then they would eventually go to Korea. We have our timeline where they just failed, but we're not going to look at that. This is a what-if timeline. I think they successfully take over Japan, because I don't think Japan would have the manpower or the military expertise to stop the Mongols from taking over and, winning. So I think they would take over Japan, because they've already successfully invaded China. I don't know if they successfully invaded China at this point, but I know they eventually successfully invade China, and use their tactic of the great, using plague, the Black Plague bodies, throwing them over the wall, using ladders to climb the Great Wall of China and stuff like that. So, I think Japan, it would. The thing is, it's a country made up of multiple islands, just like Hawaii is a state made up of multiple islands. So, I think it's the same amount of islands, 8 or 7 islands in Japan. So what would happen? Well, they would bring 2 fleets. They would bring one fleet for the main island, and then a second fleet just to, because naval combat wasn't a big thing, for the Mongols and stuff like that. They were land combat. They never really did naval combat, and not really cannons are really a big thing either. But back in that day, wasn't a big thing on ships. So they would the main fleet would go for the main island to get the Emperor of Japan and stuff like that, where the Emperor of Japan would be. Wherever the Emperor of Japan, wherever island at the time was the main island. I don't remember what the main island of feudal Japan was, but they would go for that and try to get the Emperor. Obviously, Emperor, the samurais, the shogun, they all have their main, because feudal Japan didn't really have a main army. It had the samurais, and you have the shogun and stuff like that. But I think they would take the main army, and they would invade the main island, try to take out as many samurais as they could, take a big army, and then the second or two or three fleets would take they would probably take 2 or 3 fleets, maybe 4 fleets, 3 fleets for like the small island, and maybe 2 fleets for the big island. They would probably be 4 fleets, to be honest. I'm going to say that. It would be like 4 fleets, 2 for the main island, like your big part of your army for the main islands, and like the smaller part of your army for the smaller islands or the non-main island. So that's what I think would happen. I think it would fall in like 3-4 years, maybe 5 years. I think Japan would fall eventually, and then they would work their way to Korea, and then they would eventually get all of Asia and move up into India with the invasion of Japan, and it would have one of the biggest empires ever. And this is just a what if. It's not something, it's not going to be like factually, but our main timeline is they failed in a tsunami twice, and they're like, after failing twice, they waited a few years. They went from 874 to 1274 to 1281, and after 1281, they're like, no, we're not doing this again. They waited a few years to 1274, like, oh, the tsunami, we have more important stuff to do. The tsunami scared them a little bit, basically. And then the second tsunami just basically like, look, we're not doing this no more. But that's what I think would happen. I really would. You have all this possibility stuff, but in my what if scenario is, I think they would do it in 1274. It would probably take 5 years, so to 1279, maybe to 1281, like the second invasion would, and then they would move up the Asian peninsula and move up Asia to Korea, and then eventually maybe to southeastern or southern India, and maybe it stopped in southern India, or maybe take over all southern India. But Asia would eventually, I think, fall if they ever made it to Japan, because you have India over there as well in that South Asian part. Yes, they made it to China. They could have kept going that way, but they didn't. They could have left from China, went down, and went around to probably into India, and then probably went across, or maybe tried to go across, or maybe back down and around to Japan. Never know. But they sailed straight for Japan. So people think it's Asia is connected. It's not. You have one in the middle of the ocean, like a country in Asia in the middle of the ocean, like Hawaii is a country, not a country, a former country, state now, that's in the middle of the ocean. So it's not connected to the continent, just like Hawaii is not connected to the continental United States or the continent in general, but it's in North America. But the thing is, so what I think they would have done is made it to Japan, conquered that probably in 5 years, and then took their biggest fleet, combined all their fleets, took a big fleet, sailed into India, sailed up the southern coast of India, and then probably would have got stopped, because India's huge. It's a huge country. It's one of the biggest in population next to China. Surprised they even got and conquered China, but they did. They didn't conquer all of China, but they conquered majority of China. But they would probably sail into India, conquer India, maybe from Japan, or sail from Japan, maybe sail up to Korea, conquer Korea, and then maybe sail back down, or take one smaller fleet, not the main fleet, take one small fleet from Japan, sail down to the southern coast of India, and conquer that. But that's basically my what if the Mongol Empire invaded Japan. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I like making these kind of history videos. This video has been making for a while. I just haven't been uploading. But hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, press the share button, press the like button, press the red shiny subscribe button, press the bell to stay notified every time I upload a video. I'll see you guys next video. Goodbye.